And we're back. Welcome to Print Your Games, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing and gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Oh gosh, Kristen. Ooh, this is let's start off the podcast with what you do this week.
I wrestled with a printer.
Oh, wrestle printer.
Wait, yes. I'm still
this
engaged.
Could be fun.
What's that? Yes.
Wrestling printer sounds fun.
I mean, sort of, yeah. However, it's still the ongoing saga of me and FDM. FDM and I would say we're moving from out and out bloodsworn enemies to, tense allies of necessity. That's where we're at. Tense allies of necessity. I'll give it that. Yep. Mm-hmm. But learning those, amazing things like, hey, your filament settings matter more when you're setting up your print file than when you go to your thing, because your print file can and does frequently override your override.
Yes.
So like when you go in and override your default settings in your printer, and then it checks the print file, it yet again overrides them again. And like getting that to actually like be in the right order of operations, kind of important. That's all we're going to say about FDM, because materials, hot end, bad things can happen. Bad things. I am your cautionary tale, people.
Aww.
It's okay. It's fine. Yeah. This is fine.
And,
how about you?
Well, I also wrestled with printer settings because I found some interesting things when using Lychee and the Saturn IV Ultra.
By all means.
Okay, so I was very busy printing hundreds of miniatures to give away at AdeptiCon 2024, because OPR was going to have a tiny little table at AdeptiCon, and we were all going to go, and we were all going to do some cool, fun things.
Oh, pause. I heard was.
We totally did this thing.
Okay, you did do. Okay, I just want to make sure you said was, like maybe there was something else that happened. So I was just a little nervous for you. Go on.
Yeah. And so I wanted to set up this table with all kinds of free minis and all the jazz that we could do. David's in chat did not get one. No, because I printed 300 free minis because Titan Forge said that they printed 400 free minis and that lasted them 2 days. And I was like, that sounds like they have a much bigger booth. I'll go with 300 free minis. And so I printed out 300 free OPR minis, and they disappeared in like half a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was not even close. And poor David missed it out on it. I'm sorry, David. If we see each other again, I will give you a free mini somehow. And that's when I discovered that, wait, I thought that the dwarf had the axe in his right hand, not his left hand. And then I went and got some of my other prints. And I was like, well, all 300 of these are printed the same. Wrong. Mirrored. Which doesn't actually affect things. So, hey, if you have the special limited edition AdeptiCon mirrored dwarf,
the mirrored
for you.
Yay. It's a variant.
Yeah.
Hey,
and so I did some tests. Yeah, because I printed out a couple when we first put these out just to have them and look at them and see how pretty they are. And I knew that what it was supposed to look like. And so I then went and looked at the settings and realized that if you are using Lychee and printing on the Saturn IV Ultra, and I don't know if this applies to their other Saturns and stuff, and you're printing in CTB files, so you're exporting to CTB, Chi2 box format.
Yep.
It mirrors the prints on you, and you get backwards prints because it is set to mirror by default. But that's because you're meant to export as .goo files instead of CTB files, which will then print correctly instead of mirrored. Whereas if you want to print in CTB, you have to turn off the mirror setting, and then it's weird where it's like one setting it's mirrored and the other setting it's not.
But the Saturn IV Ultra doesn't care?
Well, if I give it a goo file and I have Lychee set to slice it with the mirroring turned on, I get the correct orientation. But if I leave mirroring turned on, which is the default setting, this is how it comes when you download it from Lachi. Lachi has these like online database of printer settings. And instead of sending GU files, which is Elegoo's new open format for printing, they named it after themselves, but it's an open format because CTV is a closed format. And you remember all the stuff we talked about last year about all the fun stuff that was happening with Cheeto Box files.
People trying to force things in a certain direction. Yes.
Yeah, not fun. No. But if you then said, so basically GU files need the mirroring and CTV files don't. And I just thought that was a weird setting people should be aware of, or else you're going to get backwards dwarves.
Mirror Universe dwarves, do they not have goatees? Do they just have big swooping handlebars?
Or it's just the beard. No,
just
no
the beard.
Mustache, just the beard.
Oh no!
Right here.
No. Mirror Universe dwarves, people run.
And it was also fun because I ran into realizing it really matters which miniature you're trying to mass print, because we were giving away 2 promo, because our promo models rotate every few months. And so when we go to a con, we always give away the current promo model. And the current promo model is a human captain with this big greatsword, and she's posed all badass with it, Edward Stark style.
Yeah.
And then the other one is this dwarven captain with a plasma rifle and a big old energy axe. And they're both fun files. When I was printing the human captain, 30 of them on a plate, 2 hours to get the whole print plate done. So every 2 hours, 30 minis. Boom, 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 boom. Super easy to get my 150 human captains done. Then I went over to the dwarves, 14 to a plate. 2.5 hours, because dwarves are chunky, and that therefore they spread out wider than a human, and also use up more than twice as much resin per dwarf compared to per human. So I was like, I've got this good. I've got so much resin, and then towards the end of it, man, I am nearly out of resin and completely out of tenacious. So I need to get some more in ASAP. But I was at AdeptiCon 2024 this week, which is why we didn't have an episode last week, gang. So, and at AdeptiCon 2024, doing work, this was very much a work trip. I don't think I had more than a spare about 45 minutes that I spent with David from the audience to just look around the hall and hang out with David for a bit. And from then, everything else was work from 9 a.m. until midnight.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was fun work, and I did get to see all kinds of cool stuff at the con. So let's start with I'm out of tenacious. First thing to note is that at AdeptiCon, which is the USA's largest wargaming convention, so it's also the largest miniature focused convention. It's where the USA's Golden Demon competition takes place. Humongous Warhammer tournaments, humongous Kings of War tournaments, humongous everything tournaments, French Napoleonics, Armada, the weird pirate game where you part of building your army involves building a scale model 28mm pirate ship, and then all the pirates that are on the ship. It's called Blood and Plunder. No. You bring it. When you bring your army, you also bring the ship they're on, and then you put it on, and then you fight their ship to ship, and you do boarding actions and stuff like that. It's all fun.
So for our listeners who may or may not know, explain what Golden Demon is.
So Golden Demon is a painting competition for painting miniatures, specifically painting Game Workshop miniatures, and it's considered one of the most prestigious painting competitions in the world. Some of the best painted miniatures that you will ever see will be at a Golden Demon Awards. Because it is highly desired to win a Golden Demon, and of course, the most prized award at a Golden Demon is the Slayer Sword, which is awarded to the best miniature overall at the competition. So there's categories that have first, second, third place Golden Demon awards, and then there is the Slayer Sword, which is the best of all the bests.
And this stuff is bonkers, people. Like, you should just Google it. Go check it out. It's insane.
People that enter Golden Demon to win usually have to report like they painted on a single miniature or a single diorama for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Like not just 100 hours. No, 200, 300, 400 hours spent on a single model to win that Golden Demon.
We have a lot of folks here in chat. James, David, another David Steele and Wickham, and Troy, but also Raising Rune Lords has just said, Golden Demon makes me not want to paint because I'll never be that good. I totally understand what you're saying, but as a reminder, most of us are painting for table ready, not art. So like, don't hold yourself to that standard unless that's what you're aiming for. And then, go at it, go ham, right? But like, I understand exactly what you're saying. I understand the need to like, evaluate yourself, but don't be too harsh on yourself. Most people, if a person walking by at 6 feet away at a game store is going to go, "Ooh, neat paint job. You did good." Anyway.
Yeah. Like my speed paints that I take to these conventions usually get people going, "Ooh, you painted that? Wow." And like, they're not good paint jobs compared to by any professional standards, but honestly, you should be painting for yourself. You're the only audience that matters. And also remember that what we're really competing against is gray models with no paint. And as I hold up a green model,
yes,
with and also pre-painted WizKids hero clicks with the face on the side of the head.
Yeah. If you must compare yourself to a standard of painting at all, pick that one. Yeah.
The very first thing I see when I walk into AdeptiCon after getting all settled in is booth after booth after booth of selling 3D printed models or terrain or 3D printed related products to help with your printing of models and terrain.
Ooh.
And or marketing 3D printing as a service to people who make models and want to sell them. It's like 3D printing was everywhere at Adepticon this year. And as a podcast that focuses on 3D printing, it was a very fun place to be.
Nice.
Like,
there
was, of course, like the major studios were there. OPR was there, but obviously OPR is here every week too. Titan Forge was there. Titan Forge was there showing off their new Eve game, which is really cool and not 3D printed at all, but they also had their 3D printed stuff there too.
Is it Seocast or?
I think they're going. I think it's either PVC or HIPS.
Oh, so like traditional injected.
Like, yeah.
Okay,
but this is very true of a lot of stuff. Of almost every booth I was at there, like the end product is going to be what blah blah blah, but they were demoing it with 3D printed models. Like,
fascinating.
Yeah, like 3D printed models that look so good that you can hardly see what they are. And when you ask what they're printed on, they're like, "Oh, just printed it on a Saturn." And it's like, "Oh crap, the very printers we have access to are capable of like models," which we know this because we've been saying this on the podcast, but like when the big companies go to print their stuff, they're grabbing the same printers we're grabbing.
Right. Well, and they're willing to do things like, slower print jobs and things that maybe like if you're trying to get table ready again, you're not going to do. You're going to zoom and you're going to do all the things. But like, there are people who, if you want to go really expensive resin, really like small layer heights and just be super slow, you can get fantastic results with what we've got.
Yeah. And I guess I'll start there. Really expensive resins because, hey, I'm there. There's lots of companies printing really cool stuff. There's lots of companies selling really cool stuff, made of 3D printed stuff. And there's lots of companies selling 3D printed support stuff. And I am, of course, on a resin quest. So I was like, let's find out what people are using to print for stuff that they're going to show off at the biggest gaming con in the world. And I got a few answers and some really cool resins, but it basically broke down to two resins being quoted at me again and again and again.
Yeah.
The first is from Amerilabs, who actually showed up. Amerilabs had a booth there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they were showing off lots of cool stuff. One of the very first things they were showing off was their resin that they were offering for 3D printed of miniatures. And this is what a lot of the companies was using, was this miniature to show this resin to show off their minis, either this or the next one I'm going to show off, which is called TGM7, which is resin that's designed specifically for miniature printing. It is super durable and super crisp on details, so it's the best of both worlds.
Okay.
But it's the worst on price at $90 per liter.
Whew. Yowzer.
Yeah, this is one where you can tie a spear into a knot, and I've seen people do that with this. I got the whole models printed in this stuff and just like abuse the crap out of it. One of the demos involved like this really delicate lattice work of a person in a cage, like you would see in the dungeon terrain, and then like you drop it on the floor and he stomps on it, and then he reaches down and he picks it up and it's perfect.
Huh. Dang.
No damage whatsoever.
Dang.
Like if I was to do that demo I do on the show where I throw a mini down on the floor to say it's worthless would have a whole different outcome, because I'd throw it down, stomp. I did nothing. The miniature's still there. It's still perfect.
Wow. So obviously you're not doing like an additive with this thing. It's good to go.
No, this is meant as is. And it comes in 2 colors, clear and gray. But you can save some money if you buy the 5-liter jug.
Oh, okay. What you save? Well, I mean, that's a substantial savings actually, right? Because instead of what 500, it's like $130 cheaper ish.
No, it's like it's weird. It's hard to find out how much you're saving. You're saving. I have no idea. Math is hard.
84 or 94? It's 84. So it's a little bit less than that.
You're saving $80.
Okay. It's not quite as good as I thought, but hey, it's decent. It's decent.
Yay! Well, James, it's like a 2-inch by 2-inch vat, one figure at a time. They do sell those tiny printers. Actually, do not use them. They are terrible printers, but they do exist in the world. And like they were also showing off, like, of course, they were pitching like 3D printing for manufacturing. It's the way of the future. And they showed off like this print bed where they printed 300 of the exact same dwarf in 12 hours. And they did it by doing the multi-layered beds. So like you put the dwarf on the print bed, and then it also prints a table over top of the dwarves where the next layer of dwarves is printed, and then prints a table on top of those dwarves, and the next layer of dwarves is printed on the table. And that's a technique that's been kind of theoretical for the last couple of years, but they had been showing it like in full production, and it uses up a whole lot of resin to do it that way. You do use extra resin printing that table each and every time. But if you were just trying to get the most minis as quickly as possible, it's a way to do it, because you can run that print all night and then wake up to hundreds and hundreds of whatever part you needed to print hundreds and hundreds of, which is like, one of the goals of manufacturing is to get as many as possible out as quickly as possible. But of course, if you're printing that in TGM7, that's a very expensive choice you just made.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we are still talking about, even at $90 a liter, this is still, that just makes the price of this rat go from 8 cents to 12 cents.
Right. I mean, as long as you're using it sparingly. Lava Being asks a follow-up question here. How easy to switch between resin on most printers? Can I assume you couldn't buy an expensive resin and only use it occasionally? I mean, absolutely, you can do that, because you can also can pour it in, pour it out. You can also, if you're willing and not going to take too long between your print jobs, you can have multiple resin tanks. That can be a little tricky wicket, because if you do anything with that semi-full resin tank and swap it and bump it, you can make some big old messes. So I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're doing those jobs back to back. Like if you're doing big, nice resin job or translucent color job and then swapping and then coming back. Because when I've been like really hot and I've been doing like a whole army, I've done that where I swapped back and forth between like 3 or 4. So
and also like for the vats, like one of the things you can print is like a little vat holder for your shelf that's designed for, you can just slide in those extra vats nice and safe so they won't get bumped around and spilled too easy. Which and I used to keep for my old Saturn, I had 3 vats because you could buy a 2-pack for $40, and then like clear in 1 vat solid color in another vat. Yep. Also, it's not that much. If you've got the little syringe plug option, like the big giant syringe, you can just like get most of the resin out of your vat and into your bottle, and that makes resin swaps a lot easier. It's nowhere near as painless as swapping filament, though.
True, but it is also more forgiving, in my opinion. Like you can easily like vamp out most of a color and just have a little bit in there. And if you're not like super worried, the chances of you introducing structural flaws from that mixing, as long as you make sure it's mixed, is very minimal. Like Perram and I have both printed a large amount of minis in Mystery Soup. I don't always recommend it, but if it's like a paint and take and you're just like trying to use up old resin and you've got the clearance to use the STL files to give away, then go nuts. Like just mix that stuff up. And I have had this whole batch. They were actually incredible good detail because it was like a little bit of old Anycubic translucent, I think green with this gray Elegoo stuff that I had, and they were both kind of like on the teeter. And I ended up with this kind of army green color, and that stuff's detail was stupid good and like just a tiny bit brittle, but like overall, and it had a little tenacious in it, so it's like it was fine. It was fine. It worked great. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, I've had some Squirple resin before.
Squirple?
Yeah. It's an interesting color when you mint green and beige and skin color and black and translucent blue and gray together.
Yikes.
Just like the leftover dregs of every bottle into one bottle.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I had that bottle. In fact, I think I finally used it all up. I think I did. I think I'm back to the remnants of that big Soraya order, which I think I'm almost done with, which was 16 bottles. Yep.
Which leads us to the other resin that everybody was hyping at the convention, and the other big recommended resin, which is Wargamer resin from Fallhammer.
Oh.
And I thought, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I was like, oh, it's another influencer brand. It'll probably be good, but is it super good? Is there anything special about this compared to the other resins you could use? And the answer is, oh, heck yes.
Oh, really?
This stuff is some special magic juice here. Like actual magic juice here. Like I'm not saying it's the perfect resin for everybody, but I've never seen a resin with these properties before. So it's not about making invincible miniatures.
Okay.
You will get fairly nice, solid miniatures, better than ABS-like miniatures that will survive a table drop. But will not survive a floor drop, if those distinctions make sense. Because what this resin does is it is trying as hard as possible to make it hips. It's like, can you print something that is indistinguishable from high-end plaqued polystyrene?
Oh, yeah.
And I held up several of these bottles, several models printed from this stuff, and gave it the durability test. Like you can snap pieces off on purpose, but like a drop, it's freaking just like grabbing Games Workshop plastic off a shelf. It felt like Games Workshop plastic. It looked like Games Workshop plastic. It broke like Games Workshop plastic. It was shiny. It was the right color gray. This stuff, printing a model, it looks like you clipped it off a sprue. Like I could not, like if you were to put that in an actual Space Marine Intercessor next to each other, I would not be able to tell what material was what.
Yeah, only the STL design would give it away.
Right, exactly. And with the right print settings, which I was using for my prints for this one, and then so it was good to see that my recent changes to my print settings have been confirmed to be the ones to use by the experts. You can't see layer lines anymore. Like they just disappear into the ether. Like when you're printing with a printer is like as sharp as the new generation of resin printers with anti-aliasing on.
David, it's asking you, does it cost like GW plastic though?
No, it's $60 a bottle, which is more expensive than like your standard Elegoo ABS, like at $40 a bottle.
It's more expensive than a case of what I usually buy.
This is fair. But $60 a bottle, it's a little bit expensive, but it's not out of this world expensive. Yeah. And it's very nice stuff.
Do they do they sell that just direct, or is it like on Amazon, or where would you get it?
You can get it on Amazon. I think you can get it direct. I just would buy it off Amazon myself because that's just where I get all my resin right now. And I don't know of any other dealer to recommend.
All right. Let's see. Resin.
It's a weird thing. Also, it is water washable.
Oh,
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
I would just wash it in IPA anyway.
Okay. I mean, there's no reason not to, right?
Right. But hey, there's that. Yay.
All right. So you saw your resin, and that's where you started. Yes. What was the next big jaw dropper?
Okay. So next, after seeing all the cool resins, was noticing what printers people were using. And so I already let the cat out of the bag a little bit on this end. What printers were they using? Most of them were using Elegoo Saturn Ultras, Elegoo Saturn 4s. The newest Anycubics had some showing. There was a few people using Ultimakers. But basically, everybody had moved on to the new generation because the new generation has lots of benefits for the price tag, and these things aren't very expensive in the grand scheme of manufacturing, at least. But on the FDM side of the fence, there was one king ruling supreme. I saw nothing but shelves and shelves of bamboos. Various different choices from the bamboo range, but it was just like, oh, there's a K1C, there's a P1P, there's a Mini 1, all the bamboos. Everybody just printing with bamboos. A lot of them printing with bamboos with AMSs attached, or just speed demoning it right out of a P1P and just like pumping out parts as fast as you can blink.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how much the price point on that bamboo is.
$600 for the P1P.
So not like terribly more than we'd be swinging on a Saturn. No. And all the big boys are using it, huh?
Yeah. And if you want to save some money on the bamboos, there are their bed slingers, which I saw several people using the bamboo bed slingers. Bamboo Labs. I'm just doing a quick Google here. For $250, you can get the bed slingers version instead of the Core XY in the box.
Right.
Yeah. Though if you get the bed slinger versions, you have to use the mini multi-filament adapter. You can't use the mounted AMS 4 that can then become a 16 color. Whereas the reverse isn't true. If you have a P1P or an X1, then you can use the mini film. You can use the mini AMS, or you can upgrade to the full big boy AMSs. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing a printer.
Wow. If you're in that league.
Yeah. But it was really fun seeing those, and there was like lots and lots of like, mostly I saw like tons and tons and tons of terrain being offered that was like licensed 3D printed terrain. Of course, this was like a wargaming convention, so of course that's what was on offer. So, and it was interesting to see what kinds of terrain were being offered. There were generally 3 camps. There was the fantasy everything you could want. So buildings, towers, like all the fantasy terrain you could want.
Like there standalones or tile sets, or both?
Both.
Okay.
But since this was wargaming, it was mostly standalones. Though tile sets were represented. It was mostly people like selling like buildings and stuff and trees and stuff for terrain. Though a lot of scatter stuff and furniture that would be really good for RPGs too.
Gotcha.
Then there was the Grimdark for the Grimdark future of the 31st millennium. Lots and lots of Warhammer friendly terrain with skulls on everything.
Skulls
on everything.
Skulls and vaguely aquiline, sometimes two-headed motifs.
Indeed. And then finally, there was the Galaxy Far, Far Away terrain.
Oh,
tons and tons and tons of it too. Like almost as much, if not as much, as the Grimdark was the Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah, it was insane how much. And when I went to look at the play tables, this kind of lined up because Star Wars came hard to Adepticon. They had a ballroom that was about half of a Sagamore, if that helps you.
It helps me. I don't know how much I don't know if it helps our listeners, but I'm trying to think what's another common size thing that would be similar. So a very big hotel convention room would be about half the size of Sagamore, because Sagamore is really big. Right?
Yeah, Sagamore is so big that you can kind of see the atmosphere on the other side of the room.
Yes. That was a quarter MCP. Quick question from Lava. I don't either. Give us more info, David. Lava Being also asked, did anybody use FDM for miniatures? If not, what are they using FDM for? Anything you've seen before? I'm just going to throw in really quick. My buddy here, because I still do other local 3D printing stuff. My buddy here actually did take his Creality. He has I would say a mid-range Creality, but used resin support structures on his Creality and got it to work, and the prints looked pretty good. I mean, they had layer lines still, they were still FDM prints, but I was stunned because he was using pre-support resin stuff, and they worked and they looked fine. There were some wolves that looked pretty good. So that the FDM printers are getting to the point where they can still land that, kind of neat. Liked it.
I bet one of the Bamboo Mini with a 0.2 millimeter nozzle would probably do okay for printing off small amounts of miniatures.
Yeah, I think he did a tray of like 6 wolves, and they looked just fine. Printed them in a black filament and then just dry brushed them, basically primed them matte and just dry brushed them. They look great.
Nice. Yeah. I'm always impressed with people that do FDM miniatures, because like dialing that in and having the patience, though I guess with the new printers, dialing it in is a thing of the past.
It's getting that way.
Yeah. Hey, I never thought about like the tech on FDM is jumping. It might get to it could get to the point where I don't know if it'll ever be as good as resin, but like good enough that it doesn't matter is all that matters.
Well, given the durability and the safety, not that I think resin's dangerous, just as, again, do your own research, but we are pretty pro resin here. But just the general safety, unless you're using a really weird filament, and the fact that you can just pop that puppy off the plate and maybe like rip off a couple supports, and hell, you can use the cosplay prop that day without worrying about
at no point in time are you putting the hazmat suit to deal with the
yeah. And so as that quality gets more and more dialed in, hell yeah, I'm all about it. Yeah. David said there was Armada in the historic building and Marvel Crisis Protocol also.
Okay, yeah, there was a corner that was playing Marvel's Crisis Protocol, which is the skirmish Marvel game.
Speaking of beautiful minis,
yeah, they really are really good. It's one of the games I really want to get into, because I love me superheroes, and also I love HeroClix to death. And I just want to have the Hulk throw a taxi cab into Galactus.
I'm just looking at the 12 tackle boxes of HeroClix that don't do anything in the corner. of my gaming room right now. Anyway,
yeah. Oh, and then I saw lots and lots of games that encourage the use of 3D printed minis in them. A lot of indie games that were just like some were for some Snarling Badger, which is the studio put together by Uncle Adam and Vince Venturella.
Okay.
And they were showing off their newest game, which they were playing with lots and lots of 3D printed stuff, which was Tanks for the Apocalypse, which is a post-apocalyptic tank battle skirmish game.
Sure.
And so everybody was playing with like really cool 3D printed and kit bash tanks and stuff. That was fun.
So
they were also.
Is it a small scale where like you just have like one tank, or do you still have like a squad of tanks? How's that work?
I think it is one tank per player. At least that's what we saw. But it was like a big It was like a big melee with like several people playing all at once.
Battle Royale with tanks. Got it.
Yeah. And it was fun. And it was published in their like little zine format. So it's like a super cheap war game to get into. They were also showing off 2 other games, Space Station Zero, which I might have mentioned on the show before, which is one of my favorites. And I have a little bit of a bias here on this one, why I like it, because I showed up and there was a group playing Space Station Zero on the Fat Dragon sci-fi terrain that I helped with.
Aww.
I was like, oh, it's my past come back to haunt me. Like I went full loop because that was the first game ever. That was the first job I ever had in the game industry, and so I got to see some of the stuff from my very first gig still being used today, and that was fun. And the other one they were showing off was Majestic 13, which is kind of like an XCOM-y skirmish game, Monster of the Week type of thing, where you and it's a co-op game where you and the other players put together your own secret agency that's supported by, you pick who supports you, whether it's like the cult of ham sandwiches or Ilma-6, or you get the idea, just whatever shadowy conspiracy theory group might be supporting your group as you try to defend Earth against the invasion of aliens while also keeping said invasion secret and upgrading your base. Exactly.
We have Blasted Samaflange and Comet Lord dropping by to say hi.
Howdy.
Apparently, Blasted Samaflange is very happy for Squirrel Girl.
Oh,
so, Squirrel Girl is pretty awesome.
Always will be awesome. And there's Comet Lord. Hey, Comet Lord! If you haven't listened to last week's episode, do go listen to it. We have a nice interview with Scott from Comet Lord Miniatures.
More importantly,
wonderful. His stuff is wonderful.
Check out the campaign Comet Lord's running, because super cool stuff.
Yes. Go support the campaign. I just assumed that if you're listening to us, you already supported Comet Lord's campaign.
I mean, you should go do that. If you have a pulse and like cool stuff, and you know, like tentacles like me, or bathtub liches, which I will never let go. Never ever. Bathtub liches forever.
And then I saw Electi's booth, which was showing off 2 very cool games at their booth. One is Hobgoblin, which is a rank and flank, like a super rules like rank and flank game where you make your own army by picking themes. Like you pick themes for your force, and that kind of like helps stat them up. Like they're sneaky and ambushy and also fast, and then like you pick these qualities, and that helps you build your army up. And
so
then
what if Small World but war game?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Which was very fun. And the art in it is just glorious because everything from Electi Studios is glorious art. And then they're also the people who publish Blaster Magazine, which is this independent wargame anthology magazine that is wonderful. And they were showing off a game that's going to be in the next issue that comes out in November. I don't know what the name of the game is, but the miniatures they were showing off for it was a squad of tactical sci-fi troopers.
Tactical.
Yeah.
I like it.
And a mech, like a 28mm scale mech and that was you had a squad of 5 guys and a mech, and the other opponent had a squad of 5 guys and a mech, and the goal was to compete over very different but timed objectives on a small map with that, to kind of like get that Titanfall man versus mech kind of feel going on.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah. It was really fun. The miniatures really awesome. They were sculpted by Jordan Cuffey from Skullforge Studios, who's got a 3D printing Patreon out there, where they do a lot of pop culture inspired sci-fi miniatures. They just released a Heck Divers set this month, and they did
Heck Divers 1.5.
A Metal Cog Liquid set earlier than that. And you get the idea of the kind of material to expect, but their original stuff was also really cool. So definitely that had me excited. And that's going to be a 3D printed focused first game. So like,
right,
the game will come out in Blaster. There'll be an official set of 3D printable models available to get for it. And there was a lot of that, like a whole lot of like, here's my really cool game, and here's the line of official 3D printable models. 5 Parsecs from Home was there with 3D printable models. What was the other game? Something Modifius was there showing. They've like embraced 3D printing wholeheartedly. So like, you can get like most of their Star Trek minis in 3D print option now, and Fallout minis in 3D print, and Skyrim models in 3D print. So like, you can get the books and the games, the minis in person, or you can 3D print them on your own. Like, I like that there's a lot of these companies just embracing it. And Mantic was there, and Mantic is also a company that has very, very recently wholeheartedly embraced 3D printing. Like, they run a monthly campaign now too,
which I think I forgot about, and I'm still subbed to.
Well, good news is this month they put their giant kit on there.
Oh yeah,
and Mantic had the best giant in a while. Like, you could buy their giant kit for like $45, and it was just like assembles in like so many vastly different combinations of giant. And then they also like kept putting add-on kits, like, what if giant but Cthulhu? What if giant but Frost? What if giant but risen as a zombie from the depths of the ocean floor? And like all those kits. And so like in the past months, they had released like the add-on kits, and then more add-on kits that never got physical releases. Like, here's how to make the giant a zombie werewolf. Here's how to make the giant whatever.
A zombie
but
werewolf.
You would just go buy their cheap giant kit every time, and then like mod the crap out of it. And now I've got this cool giant, and it wasn't a very expensive kit, and it's also freaking huge. You get like a foot tall giant out of like a $40 kit. And now they were just like, screw it, the whole giant's in there. You can just 3D print it all from scratch.
I like it.
They were also showing off the Halo game, which unfortunately is not going to be available in 3D printing format. But it was a very fun game.
Soon,
though they were though you can play it on 3D printed terrain, because they were.
the big boys eventually will cave, right? Won't they? I hope they
eventually. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure I was playing with 3D printed Halo models.
Gotta love it. We don't have this for sale. Clearly, we have the files sitting somewhere in a locker.
Speaking of which, I went over to Mini Wargaming's booth, and I got to get shown Ravage Star and all the cool stuff they're doing there with their game.
That game.
I got to play Ravage Star. That was fun.
Those look so good.
And they were showing off the models, and like they were showing off both like the official like Veiled Touch, the first Kickstarters, like available. They had it there as like actual plastic, and then it looked so cool, and like the models were super cheap, even though being physical. They like had like $40 get you like 80 models. So like, what the hell? It's like, it's a good price on the models. It's like, holy crap. Like $150 basically got you a whole 2,000 point army.
Just stupid beautiful minis, by the way, if you haven't checked them out.
Very stupidly beautiful.
I will forever stand for 3D printed minis, but man, if you're getting some prefab stuff, jeebus, they're amazing.
But then they showed me all the new dwarves and aliens they had.
Are they doing Tyranids?
They did, yeah. Yeah, they did not Tyranids. And they look so good. And all those models the demos were 3D printed. Now, I don't think they're going to be providing them as 3D printable because they're going to go do the full manufacturing. But the good news is, like I just said, very reasonable prices on the manufacturing versions. But it was just, I was holding these up and like I was looking, and the only way I knew that this dwarf was 3D printed, because I was like scouring it and I like pulled out, like getting in real close with my glasses, like I can't see a layer line on this anywhere. And then like only reason I knew for sure was I turned it over and I could see the base, the pink resin that they printed this dwarf in with the dimple marks where they pulled the supports off the base.
I didn't.
And also playing on this. Also playing on this gigantic 8-foot by 4-foot table of entirely 3D printed industrial terrain with this like 3-foot tall anti-spaceship cannon as the centerpiece.
Was it their branded stuff or was it someone else's? Do you know?
I don't know. I really wish I knew.
That's one thing cool, I wish we were a little better at as a community is giving credit to the terrain people when you just, because a lot of people take like really amazing terrain to these things and just be like, this is still a response to the, you can't see it, but it says help. Yeah, in response to Tyranids from Ravage Star. Anyway.
But if you like the Ravage Star models, but want it a little less chaosy.
I mean, no, but go on.
Okay. iDemo Games is the company that actually sculpted those stuff. And they did a set called Revenant's Run sci-fi models. And it's available as physical or 3D printable. And they look every bit as good. Let me pull it up here.
But they're not the chaos ones.
No.
Those do look pretty neat though.
Yeah. They got dudes on bikes with lances.
Those kind of remind me of Puppets War a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. And all of these are available as either physical or 3D printable. So like if you, and they look every bit as good because they're made by the same people in the same art style.
Okay.
A little bit my bias here is like I have nothing to do with this product, but they did make it OPR compatible.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But like I was never involved in this product directly. That was fun to see there. Of course, like lots of beautiful boards. I saw lots of people playing Old World on really, really beautiful boards covered in 3D printed terrain with OPR models at the Old World GT.
I must have felt pretty good.
I know them mummies. I spent a lot of time with them mummies.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I saw oh gosh, what's it called? Lovecraft's like ruins city.
Nice
one. The Frost. Hey, not the Frost, but the
Frost 2.
The Frost. It's called the Frost, isn't it? With a bridge. A lot of the buildings for the Frost was there. In City of Furwood from STL Miniatures, I saw a whole table with a city battle for Mordheim made out of that stuff, and it would just look so glorious.
I bet.
Yeah. Everybody there, whether they were playing with 3D printed models or not, they were usually playing on 3D printed terrain. Like everybody was embracing the resin or the filament there.
I like this trend.
I do too. Yes.
They are singing the song of our people.
It did give me some interesting situations though. Where I would walk up to, well, now that I've got my Neptune 4 all out and unboxed and ready to go, I was like, ooh, pretty terrain. Oh, I know where I can buy the STL. Did not buy at con.
Well, I mean, okay, just gonna say this. If you're in the industry, you gotta travel. And traveling, like if I go to a con, the rare con I can road trip to, sure, maybe I can take some stuff, right? Like when we did Gen Con in 2017, I got to take a whole big rig because we went and visited in-laws, and it's a whole big road trip, and that was awesome. And I got all the space. But usually when I go to a con, I am flying, and I'm flying in with like a carry-on. So like I have to offload all the product I bring to sell, which usually isn't very much, and then I have that tiny space to take anything home in. So I don't think there's anything wrong. If you see something that's awesome, you can support that creator by buying their STL and make it when you get home. I say 100% do that.
Well, a lot of times this wasn't even the creator. It was just somebody with a license. And I saw a big, vast difference. I saw people selling like an entire board of cool sci-fi stuff for $50. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty reasonable. And the prints are nice and primo. Almost bought those. Then I went over and I saw somebody selling one Artisan Guild dwarf for $20.
Was it painted?
No. I was confused. I was very confused.
No.
Yeah. I also saw there was another couple of games I want to mention.
Okay, yeah, let's hear them. So this is basically shout outs.
I don't know is going to be in 3D printed or not, but it is a game called Grave Trigger.
Grave Trigger. I mean, just love the name already.
Which is a skirmish biomech post-apocalypse game.
Tell me more.
So the basic gist of it is this armor is ancient and alien and is completely invincible. The squishy pilot inside is not.
I see.
And the whole game is about killing the squishy pilot inside the mech by basically bashing it around until G-forces just will take care of that for you. Or
so squishing
also the pilots squishing themselves by pushing their mech farther than their little bodies can handle. Or in some cases, literally sacrificing parts of their bodies to the mech so that the mech can turn it into weapons.
Wow. I mean, it looks 3D printed to me.
The models I played with were 3D printed. And it was very fun. It was a fun game because it was all card based, and it was a skirmish game that didn't use measuring or dice.
Okay. Or dice. So it was just card dealing. So how did it just have like a zone for your placement? Was the distance
basically
on the board?
The suits are like at such a humongous power level that anything they can see is what they can hit and how far they can move, because they will just anime leap across the table basically.
So as long as it's on the board, you can just do it. Got it.
With line of sight is key. Everything's with line of sight. And it's also a hidden movement game where each player at the beginning of the turn takes turns placing tokens of where they intend their models to move, and then placing their orders or actions face down where nobody knows what the action is. And then it's you do that, you line all that up, and then you reveal the cards one at a time based on who's the fastest mech, which the fastest mech gets to reveal last. And that they get the most time to react to things. But then also a lot of the cards will this allows you to do one of these three things, and one of them will be a reaction to another person's card. So like if they move anywhere past where your mech was moving, you can then reveal a card to intercept them, and that will change how the order goes. And then that'll have like follow on changes to the whole stack of initiative for the rest of the round.
So it's a little Magic the Gathering. You can counterspell people.
Yeah, very, very much so. A lot like X-Wing, but with biomechs that I'm pretty sure are part demon. And you would like this because like a lot of the mechs also have tentacles. They're not showing the cool tentacle mech here though, but
I mean, it doesn't have tentacles. I mean, extra eyes are also good, Lobster claws.
And the mechs looked really, really cool, and the gameplay was fun and fast. And I'm kind of hoping that it'll be 3D printable, because that was a maybe when I was talking with them.
Okay. You said you had a couple others?
I think I'm out. I think I'm out of cool specific ones to shout out. I played the Shovel Knight game, but that's not 3D printed at all.
Was that the side scroller you were talking about?
Yeah. It's a side scrolling board game, which is neat because basically the board is a bunch of vertical strips.
Mm-hmm.
And then every round you take the last strip off and shove and slide it and then put a new strip at the front of the board. It's fun.
That's kind of neat. It's kind of neat. I mean, I bet you could make a 3D printed version of that.
Would be almost effortless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about tentacle eyes? Absolutely. Tentacle eyes, eye stalks on tentacles, tentacle heads with extra eyes. Let's just go. Just all of it. At the same time, just hit me. Bury me in weird and horror. At least in the minis, just not in real life. There's enough of that here. Yep. Well,
and that's about all I've got. Do you have anything to shout out to, Kristen?
I'm just gonna once more say, check out Comet Lord's campaign. I think that's a good deal and fun stuff. Honestly, I don't know that there's anything else that's reached out and grabbed me recently.
All right. Well, if you want to reach out and grab more of our podcast, you can do so over at printergames.com. You'll find links to all our socials. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and all that jazz, wherever you're listening to. If you want to help the show out, the best thing you can do is to give us a review on Spotify or iTunes, or if you're watching us on YouTube or YouTube Podcasts, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
Kristen Soward's. Oh, sorry. Kristen Soward's also known as Seventh Mastery. Don't forget to use your screen protector. Bye-bye.